friends, I regard it as a particular honor to be able to speak on Akbar and his achievements before this audience. When I was at school, in our high school mentor circle, Tonki Saab taught us history, and he said you should, to all of us, you should remember two things. And first he wrote out on his board Devanam Piya in Prakrit, which were the initial words of an Ashokan inscriptions. And the second, of course, it was Akbar, some episode of Akbar. In the entire Indian history, he thought that the two rulers who really deserve attention had been Ashoka and Akbar. This was actually in my childhood, before 47, the usual statement of Indian nationalists. Of course, then Muslim League came up and Akbar was wiped out. And later on, since it's a joke, I'm repeating it. Ishtaq Hussain Qureshi, who first wrote a book against Akbar, he knew Persian, but as a historian I would count him as of second rate, although he was a senior man and so on. But then after Pakistan he wrote another book to defend Akbar, because he felt that Pakistan needed reminding that it should be governed by a person like Akbar and in the manner he did. So Akbar has been assessed from various angles given your present political position. Indian nationalists, of course, proclaimed his glory. Muslim communalists denounced him for giving too much concessions to Hindus. And you can see it in the controversies and papers which were published before 1947 in the proceedings of the Indian History Congress. When the debate between Congress and Muslim League historians was quite open. Then, of course, after partition, that has ceased. Now, clearly, Akbar, therefore, remains a figure who can be invoked by Indian nationalists and secularists. And that is a very big thing, that in a changing world, Akbar should still count. If you read the Ain-e-Akbari, particularly in the Persian text, because Jarrett in his translation has removed the particular criticisms that he had offered of Islamic history. This is a very curious fact, that Abul Fazl should be so critical of the intolerance in Islamic past. And even an English translator thought that reproducing it, his criticism of Muslim intolerance, would demand censure, might bring about censure. So Blockman's translation of those passages in which he criticizes Muslim intolerance and in fact Caliphal past, that particular section has been only partly translated by Blockman. Therefore, when we go to Akbar, one should go to the Persian texts and not translations. That is my First, the Persian text is much bolder, much clearer, much critical of Islamic past than the English translation. I think for this there was a particular reason why Abul Fazl should bring up these issues. Because Akbar and his courtiers, towards the end of the reign, in the last 15 years of the reign, were trying to build up a state apparatus in which both Muslims and Hindus would have a share. And that is why when we read Abul Fazl Ain Akbari today, so many things look so modern, and why he is so critical of the Islamic past, particularly its intolerance. I think that one lesson from this is that history is not theology. That one should go to history without any commitment to any particular faith or prejudice. It is not perhaps totally accurate to class Akbar with Ashok. Because the two, although both propagated tolerance, there is greater role of reason and rationalism in Akbar than in Ashok. In Ashok you have piety, in Ashok you have sympathy, in Ashok you have concern for everyone's welfare. But in Akbar you have also rationalism, an insistence on reason, a rejection of religion, which if you read Ain Akbari, you would be clear. The translators have been very careful. They have either modified Abul Fazl's criticism of Islam, or they have omitted it altogether. I am not saying that you must agree with that criticism. Religion is a touchy matter. But still, one must imagine an India in which religion could be so freely discussed. It is not possible today, neither in India nor in Pakistan. But it was in Akbar's time. One may not agree with what Abul Fazl is saying. One may not agree with his criticisms of Islam. But the fact that he could say that, the fact that he was still regarded by most people as one of the great stylists in Persia, that Aurangzeb would ask his son to read Abul Fazl if he wanted to write Persian properly. But when his son said something drawing upon Abul Fazl, Aurangzeb also says, don't accept his criticism of religion. But it is, I think, precisely his criticism of religion that makes Abul Fazl so modern, so contemporary, so topical. I therefore think that today, if we read our history, then Akbar should have a special place in it, because in Akbar's reign we saw everything existing brought into question, which was never the case before. Even in Ashoka's time, true, Ashoka seems to reject the caste system, seems to reject because he doesn't propagate it. But in Akbar's time, the case for reason was proclaimed, and in the Ain-e-Akbari, if you read the original and not the translation, because the translator has either modified or removed the criticisms of Islam's past that Abul Fazl provides. So Abul Fazl has not only given a case for secularism, it is a case against religious intolerance also, religious orthodoxy also, a case for reason. And therefore I think that to celebrate Akbar and especially Abul Fazl is particularly important today, because reason and tolerance are under attack in the country. I have been studying the changing syllabi, and now Akbar is only to be remembered because of his destruction of Chittor, not because of his religious policy, not because of his propagation of reason, not because of his tolerance, but because of the slaughter at Chittor, and so on. I think it is very important for all historians, whether faculty, teachers or students, to stand up for reason, to stand up for facts, to say that Indian history is not only about religious tolerance or intolerance, it has also many other facets: culture, literature, rationalism, religious tolerance, and so on. And therefore Akbar must have a special place in our, Akbar and his associates like Abul Fazl must have a special place in our history. I think Professor Rizvi had already referred to it, if I am not mistaken. The present regime's redrawing of history syllabus is a scandal, and all universities, including ours, must reject it. The history syllabus must be comprehensive. It must include all aspects of life, from thought to technology. It cannot be only about the Hindu-Muslim problem, in which our present government revels. So, wherever we are, in whatever capacity we are, I think it is very important to hold the cause of reason and reject communalism, which is the basic doctrine of the present regime. Thank you very much.